Hey guys, we're going to work together today to finish this last rectangle here. You can see I've done 2 of the 3 rectangles, and there's a few things I want to cover before we get started at all. The first thing when we're working with oil pastels or paints or shading is to understand the difference between a hard edge and a soft edge. A hard edge example would be in my pattern down here. Another hard edge example would be in the ears and the eyes. A hard edge is when one color abruptly meets another color, so you very clearly see the shape. So for instance, in the pattern here, it very abruptly changes from golden to white, so you clearly see those patterns. That's a hard edge in the art world. When we're talking about a soft edge, that's something more along the lines of in here where you look at the horn of the deer where they kind of have this part of its head that sticks out. It's a very subtle and gradual change from light to dark. In the horns, this is kind of in between, but it's mostly a soft edge where it gradually changes from black to a lighter color. So be aware of those in your work. Notice ahead of time where are your hard edges and where are your soft edges, and I'll show you how to conquer both today. So let's go ahead and get started. My third rectangle is going to be blue, and I'm going to put these, my finished ones, off to the side so that I don't make a mess of them today. For selecting your colors, I would recommend definitely want black for those really dark areas that you identified last class. So inside my nostrils is going to be pure black. And perhaps a tiny little bit. I noticed this was really dark on my photograph, so I might save pure black for this. Everything else is going to be either white or a medium color. So I know that in here I'm going to keep it really, really light, almost white. And I know in here I'm going to keep it black. Everything else is going to be kind of fun to play around with what blue I want. So let's go through and test. I'm going to work with 3 blues. I have 4 here, and I'm going to pick one of these to work with because these 2 are super similar. This is really light. This is really dark. I want to find a good medium. So I think I'm going to get rid of this one, and I'm going to use this. So I have a clear light blue, medium blue, dark blue. You can also incorporate black on those really, really dark areas like my nostrils, and you can include white for those really, really light areas for inside my pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and just sample out my colors. This also cleans off the oil pastel. If it was used before, there's definitely going to be some gunk stuff stuck to it which could affect your color. So I'm going to kind of just sample these out, clean off my white, even though sometimes I like working with a dirty white because it gives you some interesting colors that you would never have thought to do yourself. So this is my palette I'm going to be using for the whole thing. White, black, light blue, medium blue, dark blue. And the first thing I'm going to go through and seek out are my medium areas. So I'm going to probably pick a medium blue here, and I'm going to fill my pattern in with that medium blue. And if I was to look, I'm just doing kind of a quick, I'm going to work on a paper towel. I'm just doing kind of a quick job, and I'll show you as I speed the video up. I'll show you how I do some kind of blending and make it look a little more exciting than what it looks like. Right now it kind of looks like a 2-year-old colored it. I want to give it some really nice range of values in here. So I'm going to color. I noticed that on my photograph, on my reference photo, that all of the spots are pretty much the same value. They get a little bit darker right in here where it touches the giraffe's face. But for the most part, they're pretty much all the same blue. So I'm going to color them all the same blue. And I'm going to use a lighter blue for the nose. Notice I have kind of a shadow here that I mapped in earlier, so I want to make sure that I use that. And on my reference photo, I notice it gets particularly light in some of these spaces, so I'm going to add a little bit of white so that it lightens that blue up a little bit. It also smooths the color out so I don't get that textury oil pastel look. Around the nose it gets slightly darker, so I'm going to pick a slightly darker color. Definitely not my darkest. This is still kind of a medium blue. I know the inside of my nostrils is going to be black, but I want to save my black till the very end because it can get really smudgy. And I'm going to pick a medium blue for down here also. So use your reference photo to kind of seek out. Now, right now, I've created a hard edge here where I don't want a hard edge. It abruptly goes from dark to light blue. So in order to smooth it out, I have a couple of options. The way I like to do it, I take that medium blue and I just kind of really lightly feather into that space. And then I'm going to go back over it with my light blue to kind of blend those two spaces together. So it's a much less abrupt difference. And smooth it out. And I'm going to come up here with white because I don't want to get it too dark. So I'm going to use my white to blend this part of the nose up here. Around my nostrils should be a pretty hard edge. If I look at my photograph, I notice it pretty abruptly goes from darker to lighter. So I'm going to kind of keep the nostrils as they are for now. I want to clean them up a little bit though because the edges don't look very pretty. So I'm going to come in here and just kind of clean it up, try to cover some of my pencil marks. And I'm going to use the same blue in here, very lightly. I'm just going to come in and tackle the pattern on my draft space. Now I notice that these spots very, very subtly change. It's really not a hard edge. These almost kind of fade into the back. So I'm going to just kind of apply almost like a light scribble outside of them so that I can transition nicely into the white. And in here, this part stays kind of a nice light blue, kind of a nice medium color. It's definitely not my lightest area, so I'm going to have that. And here I notice I have a dark space, so I might use some of my darker blue to come in and map out that nose. Now, this is the very bare minimum of what you need to do. If this is where you're going to end and you don't want to make it super fancy, then you can just go through right now and smooth out using either a white or another color. You can kind of smooth out some of those shapes. But I want to show you how I worked to achieve some of these more complicated gradients and values. So just watch and observe what I do. Notice how I blend and layer and mix and smudge colors to create a more interesting effect than what I have now.